Kieran Read, welcome to Between Two Beers.
Hey fellas, how are you?
We are very well, and we're excited to have you on for a number of reasons. One of them being we may be in conversation with two of the last people in New Zealand to still be rocking a Hotmail email address. It really made me giggle when I got your details. Such a legendary, accomplished man rocking a Hotmail operation.
Keeping it old school. Keeping it old school.
Yeah. Had you ever considered changing it up, or is there a more
I've
formal?
I do have
one out there?
Yeah, I've got a couple other emails, but that seems to be the one that people have had, And so it's like, how do you change it? How do you actually make that change? So I'm all good with it. It's fine. Happy.
Yeah,
Not
it's
too
nice.
much
Understated. We're going to touch a lot on sort of life after rugby as we go through, but I'm always interested. Shay hates this question, but I like a little insight. What did you do today? What did Kieran Read do on a regular Wednesday?
Today, oh man, for me it was really just about getting the kids to school. So I got 3 kids.
Told you. I knew it would be there.
So it's based around my family at the moment, which is quite cool. Obviously just recently retired, and kind of setting up a little bit of what I'm doing post footy. But yeah, got the kids ready for school. I went for a run this morning, and then just did a little bit of work. A little bit of prep, bit of stuff around my kind of leadership business that I'm getting into. And yeah, I took the wife out for lunch. Nice. And then kids get home from school and you're basically, you're wrestling on the tramp and running around outside. So it was
prepping for a podcast.
I'm curious, Kieran, we've got a mate, Ella de Melmont, you probably know him, who literally, when he finished playing rugby, has not set foot in a gym ever again.
I can't believe that.
Yeah, I know. As anyone who knows Alad knows Mega, he's a big man, but he literally hasn't. Are you on that same buzz? Are you just not interested in lifting a weight?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I have not set foot in the gym. I have not picked up a weight, a dumbbell or anything since I retired. So it's kind of one of those ones, you had to do it for so long and for your career and for your body and, to perform what you had to. So you had to work hard in the gym, and it was okay, but I didn't enjoy it as much as some of the other parts of the, of what you're doing as a rugby player. So yeah, I kind of stopped, and I never thought I'd go running because I hated running too. You think about it, you play sport for a profession, hate running and hate doing the gym, but I just started running. It's kind of been my buzz to keep fit and just to kind of clear the mind, really. So it's been really good.
And it's not just running, right? It's running. Have I got it right that you've done half of the old Ghost?
Yeah, did that in the kind of end of last year. Yeah, just 55k in a day.
I just love how casual that is. Yeah, just 55k in a day. Some of us haven't done 55k in our lives.
I definitely didn't run the whole way. There's some dark patches. Like I'd run 20k before it. That was the furthest I'd run it in one outing. So 2 hours, and then you turn up for this whole Ghost Road, and it's pretty hilly and pretty tough, and man, she was a tough gig. About 30k in, I was feeling all right, and then suddenly hit the wall, and you kind of go through about 10k of demons. It was tough. So, but yeah, about 8 hours later, got to the end. Man, it was pretty fulfilling, to kind of get done. I scratched a little bit of an itch. It's quite and the kind of people I'm hanging out with, a few mates down here who enjoy it, and the next thing on the agenda is a bit of a 12-hour kind of adventure race, Kaikoura. So that'll be interesting. Yeah, bit of running, bit of biking, bit of everything really.
Is that Scotty Stevenson that's got you into the trail running? We had him on earlier, and he was talking about his running. I know the Old Ghost Road is one of his favourites.
Yeah, that's his one. He loves it. So I've seen his journey obviously, and he transformation, and probably a few people say that with me too. Like I've dropped a bit of weight after you kind of stop going to the gym, and then you just start running. It just drops off you.
Yeah, how much have you lost since you stopped playing?
It's probably close to 15 kgs, I guess, which is pretty remarkable. But I think maybe I'm just like, all my brothers are tall and skinny and probably similar to what I am now. Like I had to work quite hard to keep the weight on during the career. You know, if I kind of in the off season, like you come back from tour or something, and you have a few weeks where if you didn't do too much, like even though I was eating heaps, I'd still kind of end up losing weight a little bit. So you always had to eat heaps, shakes, supplements, all that stuff. So quite a big commitment to keep that weight on. So I think, yeah, it's kind of probably naturally dropped down, and then a bit of running kind of helps out, I guess.
Yeah, you're looking good. You're looking good. The way we do things at Between Two Beers, we tell the audience how we know the guests. So, Shay, how do you know Kieran Read?
I feel that's a stupid question, Steve. As a former All Black captain, I've pretty much watched almost every one of his tests, I think. If I wasn't in the country, I was trying to tune in wherever I was. How do you know Kieran Read?
Yeah, fair point. I obviously know Kieran as the All Blacks legend too, but I've done a lot of Kieran Read research over the last week. And what's really struck me is the contrast between the big, hulking, powerful on-field Kieran Read and the kind, gentle off-field Kieran Read. And I've found a few examples of what I mean. So I've heard you say the most fun you've ever had playing rugby was in the first 15 at Rosehill College. I've heard you say you love to dance, that you took your wife to your school ball. You want to be remembered as a family man, a good guy, a good dad, someone people can rely on. And if I've ever related to an All Blacks captain, it's through this one. You said your happy place is mowing the lawn. Now, as a father of three, my happy place is mowing the lawn, so I feel you on that one. But I just love the wholesome nature of all those examples. Is that a fair summary of you?
Yeah, I think you've done quite well there. That's some good research. I think, yeah, I'm just kind of, you feel blessed to have done what I've done, you know, and obviously that means you're in the spotlight, and it means you've, you know, been in people's television lounge rooms and stuff like that. You know, but I guess for me, as you mentioned, like I met my wife while I was still at high school, so she keeps me pretty grounded. You know, having kids quite early, and just doing what you love. And so, yeah, I've been pretty blessed with the people around me to make sure that, you know, you just are who you are. And this is me. And I guess that sums it up quite nicely.
Nice. I'm going to love and peeling back the layers on that through the episode. But we're going to start with what's been described as your greatest achievement in sport, which is, of course, scoring 84 runs off 55 balls, including a 100-run first wicket partnership with Will Jordan for Team Rugby in the Black Clash. Now, I watched that game, and fuck me, that was impressive batting. I think that was your brother that made that claim. I think I heard you say it in an interview. Do you agree with it?
Oh, yeah, it's probably right up there. I don't think it might not be my greatest achievement on a sporting field. But, you know, like we grew up playing cricket in our household. Probably, you know, at school, it was probably our number one sport. We all loved it. Karaka Cricket Club, a little shout out to them. Like we spent plenty of Saturdays, Sundays there. Really enjoyed it. So, yeah, my bro was, I think it was genuine, when he texted me when I got off the field, and you know, you kind of muck around a little bit, and then you check your phone, and that was probably the first one that popped up. You know, this is your greatest achievement. That's all he said on the sporting field. So it's probably pretty typical of him.
One of the most appealing aspects of that match was Shane Bond bowling, and knowing that he still had a little bit in him, seeing how fast he could bowl, and then seeing regular punters, calling you a regular punter, probably not very fair, but guys who hadn't played cricket for a while facing that. Was there any fear involved in facing Bondy?
Potentially a tiny bit, but actually more excitement. I don't know, like probably like yourselves, if you love cricket, like I love watching Shane Bond play, and growing up, that was, you know, one of my heroes. And so suddenly you get the opportunity, and having, you know, I guess what I've done over my career in rugby, you want to test yourself in those moments. And so suddenly I've got this opportunity to face Shane Bond. And so at halftime, well, actually, I'll take it back. So I flew up with Shane Bond to Tauranga from Christchurch. I was like, okay, mate, I've got a good chance here. I'll just butter him up a little bit. So like went for coffee when we got up there, and I just, you know, started yarning. We had a good yarn, and we know each other a little bit before that, but just thought I'd just butter him up, you know. So then when I did face him, he maybe wouldn't swing it down too hard, and then lo and behold, first ball, I bounced it straight at the head. And I was like, what's happening? But it was just excitement, to test yourself. And you literally, he's, bowling 20k slower than what he would, or more probably, in his heyday. But for me to face it, it felt like it was coming at 150, and you're just going, just got to react and see the ball hit the ball. It's a bit of the old Colin de Gronholm type of thing, when you're in that state. So the worst thing is that he didn't play the first over. So I said to Will Joel, I'll take the first ball because I wanted to face Shane Bond, and then Kyle Mills bowled the first over. I was like, just don't get out, because I just, because I don't want, I'd face Millsy. He's a difficult man to get away. And I was just like, just don't get out, face Bondy. As long as you can face him a couple of balls, you're good, happy. So it worked out.
You're obviously used to the prime time and playing on TV, but playing a different sport on TV in front of a big audience, like, are you prepping for that? How many nets are you getting in before the game?
Yeah, to be honest, I had no nets. I had one net the day of the game. And so I got to the point where I was always psyching myself up to go have some nets, but never really got the opportunity over summer, kids at home and stuff. And so it was literally backyard, my daughter bowling to me. She's 11, playing cricket for the first year this year. So, she can bowl, but it's the included ball is a little bit different to the hard ball. And so that was my prep. And then it got to the point where it got kind of too close to the game. A week out, I was like, there's no point having a net now. It's just going to probably do my head in, fuck with me. So it was more just the case of turning up. I was a little bit hungover because the night before was always a big night. The cricketers get into it. And so, it was great playing the game now when you're not playing footy anymore. Like when I played a few years ago, you're always worried about, the next day in trainings and stuff. Whereas now I can just, enjoy it. So woke up hungover, went and had a net and got a few cobwebs out, I guess. And then there you go try.
Classic line.
Players must love that black clash. Like the thought of getting together with a bunch of mates for a game of cricket on its own, having a few beers is amazing. Like the production that goes behind it, the night before on TV, like world-class athletes around you. Is that just the highlight of the year? Like, are you buzzing for that weekend?
Oh, it's one of the great weekends. 100%. And it is purely because of the connections that you make, and they do it so well. Like that black clash is just well supported. Obviously, like the selling out. Those like Bondi and Fleming and stuff were saying that they actually have never played in front of a sold out crowd in New Zealand.
Wow.
Even Eden Park and when they were playing, like it never sold out. They never sold out. A base in Rosehill Park. So it was all, they're like, this is incredible, So it's it's pretty cool, pretty special, and even just to pick up war stories off those guys, and for us rugby guys as well to catch up, and it's a great concept, and everyone's putting their hand up to try and get the invite again the next year.
Was there anyone in that cricket side that you'd actually played against way back when at age group level?
Yeah, no, there was. So I played so BJ Watling and Anton Devcich. I'm that same age as them. So I played for counties. They played for Hamilton. So we played against each other a lot, basically from under 12s to 17s, 19s. And I captained a few ND of those age group sides that I played with them. So me and BJ opened the batting back in the day a lot, and Anton was there. So it was cool to catch up. Obviously, seeing how their careers had, especially like BJ's, had flourished so much. So it was awesome to play with them.
We've actually had both of those guys on. I set you up there because I did speak to BJ in anticipation of this episode, and I tried to get out of him whether he thought you'd be a black cap, and he said, "Oh shit, you're putting me on the spot there. I won't put my reputation on it." But you're underselling your age group cricket there. Was being a black cap something that was on the horizon when you were playing?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think I was a better cricketer than I was a rugby player at 16, 17, I think, and even 18 probably. Like I was a better cricketer. And so that was what I felt my path was going to go down. Like I, in the middle of winter, had an awesome coach, Alan Wimp, who's just passed away recently. He'd drive out from Manurewa out to Karaka, and on my way in to school, I'd stop in at 7:30 in the morning in the middle of winter, and he'd give me throwdowns, and then you'd rugby was kind of just that fun thing you did with your mates a little bit, and I enjoyed rugby and I competed in it, but yeah, cricket was where I probably gave more of that time and stuff during that whole school time. Kind of the moment where rugby maybe took over was under 19 level. So my last year at high school, it was either go to under 19 rugby trials or go to under 19 cricket national tournament. And so I thought I'd go for rugby because I knew I had cricket the next year as well. I had 2 years in the cricket, a chance to go for cricket. So I went to rugby and kind of bust my thumb up a little bit in the trial. Got called in because someone got injured in the ND team and couldn't go to the cricket tournament because it was like a week or the same week or just the same time, and made the rugby team. And then from there, the next year, I was actually injured as well. So I would have had a crack at cricket just to see, I guess, if you're good enough, that because, so I didn't really get that opportunity to test myself in that kind of next echelon. But as I said, I love cricket and still do, it's something I really enjoyed growing up.
It's amazing how similar your story is to Ryan Nelson, who we had on. We asked him, when you were 17, 18, did you know you were going to have the professional career you had now? He's like, no, I thought I was going to be a cricket player. I was better at cricket than football. You've both gone on to captain your country, be absolute legends of the game. Does that speak to just sort of good genetics, good all-round sporting ability? Like, were you super good at other sports too, or was it just cricket and rugby?
I think it's, there's obviously a bit of talent there, 100%. But I think more so, it probably just speaks to, how you're brought up, I guess. Like, I think my older bro, he pushed me, as every kind of, I was middle child, but I was only, just under 2 years younger than my older one. So it was all about, he started rugby at 6. So, I was basically, pestering my parents. So I started at 4, and it's just kind of, you're just chasing him around, and he'd push you because, he would have a crack at you and everything. So, it really kind of pushed me, and I guess I got a bit of competitiveness in me. And my dad would, just push us out the door, and, he'd bowl to you or he'd do whatever you wanted. But as long as you're outside doing something, and he always said, just keep working at it, keep working hard. So you got a little bit of that work ethic as well. So,
are you the same as a dad? Are you encouraging the kids to get outside more than get off the devices, or have things changed a bit now with technology?
No, I still encourage them to get outside. Like it's different, eh? Like, no, they get their iPad time, but it is a time. So, and it's not every day. So, try and get them outside as much as you can. It's pretty cool. Like I understand the values and the benefits of team sport or sport in general, really, and what it can do to help people. And so the cool thing is that all my 2 daughters, my son's just turned 5, so he's not really into it just yet. But they play touch. My eldest plays cricket. Both play netball, basketball, hockey. So they're all it's quite cool. They're all into it. So my wife's not too happy because when I'm away, she's got to ship them around everywhere to trainings. But it is, it's pretty awesome to see that they're doing that. And the way she got into cricket, like just in the backyard, just us playing. And then one day she said, "Dad, can I go play cricket?" And it's like, "Yeah, cool, go for it." And I'm not pushing them, but I just know the benefits of it, getting out there and having a go.
Your wife not being happy is kind of a nice seg into the next thing we're going to talk about, which is, and there's going to be a few sort of excerpts from your book that we're going to talk about across the course of the episode. But the place we have to start is the wrestling match at Owen Franks' wedding in 2014, which grabbed our attention straight away. So the story goes that your first ever encounter with Richie Mo'unga came when you headlocked him at that wedding. And the book reads, Mo'unga, who was a Crusaders Academy prospect at the time, was sent in to break up a WWE-style wrestling match between you and Andy Ellis, which erupted at the reception. He decided it would be a good idea to wrestle me at the reception, Read said. Being two competitors, this soon descended into an all-out WWE-style wrestling match, during which we tried to choke each other out. We soon spilled out of the reception and onto the front lawn, where the fracas continued, much to the annoyance of our respective wives and the mother of the bride. Richie was duly sent in out to split us up. Andy and I would never have conceded. And it was at this point that I turned on him, put him in a headlock, and left him momentarily unconscious. But Read, who had been drinking whiskey, said he had no recollection of the physical interaction between him and his future teammate, which made for an awkward introduction at Crusaders training the following week. I'd never met him before, so extended my hand and introduced myself. Richie shook my hand, had a brief conversation, and wandered off. It was only then that Andy, by this stage on the floor laughing, told me what I had done to the poor kid over the weekend. I don't know many players that started their career by being strangled by their captain, but Richie is one of them. So obviously, amazing story, like so good you put it in the book. There's a few parts of that that really made me giggle. One is thinking of like the civilians at the wedding who's just seen this like gigantic Crusaders captain wrestling on the ground.
Yeah.
And the other one is like, how did it end between you and Andy? What was the end there?
Well, I don't think there was an end. But first of all, I got to say that it was Owen Franks' fault for basically supplying us with whiskey for the toasts and, whiskey while we're waiting while they're doing photos. There was whiskey decanters everywhere in his wedding because that's all he drank. So, us being us, we had to partake. Had to show him respect that way. So, it definitely went into a bit of chaos. To be honest, I know it happened, but I don't know too much about the occasion because I can't remember. But I remember waking up and there was grass stains all over my suit and stuff. And so I texted Andy and said, mate, what's going on? And this is, the story with Andy. So he's competitive. I don't know if you know him that well, but, and he's a halfback and he's chirpy and loud and everything. So, and I'm competitive. I'm not going to talk as much as him, but if he yucks up, I'm going to stand up for ourselves. So basically that's probably what happened. And literally it would have gone on for a long time because none of us would concede. One pre-season kind of camp, we ended up playing paintball for the Crusaders, and we're in different mini teams, and it just descended into. And so there's heaps of young guys in our mini teams, guys who probably didn't know us or knew us but didn't know us that well and didn't know our relationship. And so suddenly there's these two senior Crusaders basically not coming to blows but having a very serious discussion about paintball and who's won and who's got the flag and all the stuff. And like I'm because he can just talk his way out of things as he tries to, and I'm just accusing him saying all this stuff. And genuinely all our young players who didn't really know us that well thought that we hated each other genuinely. And so it kind of came back to us. We kind of were able to just to kind of play off that for a few weeks of just that we actually did although we're best mates, like we could genuinely hate each other. So Andy's a good man. But the whole story, come back to Richie, is he got sent in by his mother-in-law to break us up, and it didn't quite go down too well for him. But full credit to Richie is that he jumped on the whole thing and he loves it, and he when I came up to him and said, hey mate, I'm Kieran, he didn't say, oh yeah, I've met you before. He just looked me in the eye and said, oh, I'm Richie, nice to meet you, type of thing. So, we've had a good relationship since, and probably since then it's been pretty tight. It's a pretty cool thing to bond over, giving a headlock. Starting off, showed him how tough the Crusaders had to be. So he's done pretty well since.
I'm really curious on that story as to at what part of the night did that happen? Because you said you've woken up with grass stains on the suit. I'm hoping it was towards the end of the night. If it was early doors in the reception, would have been amazing.
No, it was at the end. It was at the end. So, the story of it was, our wives were kicking us, and this is trying to get us into the taxis and get us out of there, and we just wouldn't go. It's it's probably the story of my night. They, you know, it's my wife kicking me to get home. But yeah, the other ones that they're sending in different people to try and sort us out. Like White Crockett's coming in there, basically trying to hook up, like giving us a couple of punches to the face. Whatever was in our head was that we just couldn't let it go, and we just couldn't let the other one win for some reason. And you know, it just kept going. I don't know how long it went on for, but obviously it ended at some stage.
I do love that thought. It's just brought back a memory of a 21st. I think, Stephen, you were there as well. It was Mark Berman's 21st, and I've referenced Allard already, but there was I think, Stephen, you were egging them on. There was some arm wrestle between Allard and someone else, and it was like, as a person not directly involved with rugby, but watching this thing go on with these hulking guys, it was kind of like, shit, man, I don't really know how this is going to pan out. I don't know who's going to back down and where this is going to end up. Good times.
Yeah, it is. It's got, you know, there's certain competitiveness, isn't there? And then you just know the guys you're not going to back down to, I guess. But I think it's probably rugby. It's probably anyone who is competitive, and we probably got in that state. You know, it was probably a perfect storm for us to kick off, I think.
That's so good. Like, the book was great, but like little, like, I don't know, tidbits like that and being able to expand on them is what this is all about. Thank you for the detail you provided there. I'm going to change course slightly, and it's a bit of a tough transition, to be honest, but there was some devastating news over the weekend that legendary winger Joeli Vidiri passed away, and there were a lot of wonderful things written about him and his career. But I want to read a passage from the incredibly talented Sumo Stevenson for something he wrote in the spin-off. He wrote, "Only a handful of players, maybe fewer, could ever claim to have equal billing in a match featuring Jonah Lomu. But Joeli Vidiri was one of them, the Tongan kid who changed rugby forever, and the Fijian bloke who scored tries for fun. For a few years in the late 1990s, the Jonah and Joe show was the hottest ticket in New Zealand rugby. Stephen Donald used to sit on the grass bank at Pukekohe Stadium and watch that show every chance he got. So did Kieran Read. At a time when the National Provincial Championship still got the blood boiling and the crowds on their feet, the two wingers were the headline act." Is that how you remember? What were your memories of watching Joeli, and did you end up playing with him?
No, I never played with Joeli, but met him a handful of times, obviously just through my time up in counties and being up there, and you know, just an absolutely great man, you know, humble and a quiet man, and just the smile on him, you know, was amazing to meet. It's really sad. Really rocked me out. It was, you know, when I heard the news. So just pass on all my thoughts to the family. But yeah, it's he was amazing. Like, as you know, what Sumo said, we go to every home game for the 90s for counties, and it was an absolute heyday. Like, we had a great team. You know, through that time, and you know, on the bank, you know, 2:30 on a Saturday or Sunday, and it was just fantastic. Pumping, the crowd was huge, and watching Joeli or any one of those guys, but Joeli especially, you knew you could do something, and that's kind of when rugby was just, they had space, they had time, and you know, if you've got the talent to do it, he just, you know, he could do anything on the field. And probably his famous moment, and there's lots of highlights that floated around, was, I think it's 97, and you probably heartbroken from this day, but
I was there.
Rugby Park, so I was there too. Yeah, so we drove down for the semi-final, and you know, Waikato's pumping us 20 minutes ago, and the announcer, we're on the bank with my dad.
You know who? You know who the announcer was? It was Buck Anderson, and he was my PE teacher at Boys High. We were raging on Monday with him, but you finished the story.
The great thing is that, so there's a handful of county supporters in the bank and stuff, and he announced our tickets to next week's final, and this is great. So I tell Fozzie the story heaps because, you know, obviously he was involved in it, and give him shit about it, but and then Joeli suddenly, out of nowhere, really, just puts on an absolute show and, he scored a hat-trick that day, but he just scored these tries and just somehow blew the game apart. Counties come back from 20 points or whatever it was to win the semi. And that was, as a kid, watching that and being in that crowd, what a Waikato crowd is like. And I was 12, I think. Yeah, probably 12. It's pretty eye-opening, see what's going on. But just amazing to be there live and see that game and see what Joeli could do. And, counties were aligned with the Blues as well. That's the whole reason the Blues won those first two titles, was the fact that counties were aligned with them, and they used our two best assets, Jonah and Joeli, to win them titles. So I was a Blues supporter, Blues fan. He went to the Natal final. I think that was the second final that they won. So I went to the Eden Park, and it's the same thing, just watching these heroes of yours. And it's pretty cool. Like, my dad would get me to these games. He obviously wanted to go, and he knew I was keen on it. So yeah, it's pretty awesome time to be a counties fan. It was great times.
You can hear it in your voice. So obviously, when COVID hit and you had the opportunity to turn out for Counties Manukau, how special was that, not only for you, but I guess for your family, maybe even your old schoolmates?
Yeah, it was epic. It was massive. It was it was kind of, it's hard to call it a regret, but it was kind of one of those things that was nagging at me throughout my entire career, because I would have played for them my first year out of school. I was signed with Counties, and they were second division at that stage, and not in great shape. But I blew my knee out, and so I didn't play that at all that year. And then I went down to Canterbury. So missed that chance. And then, I signed for them for the last 3 years of my New Zealand contract, but didn't play because you don't when you're an All Black. And then, getting the opportunity, it just kind of, Ty got in touch, and Grant Henson, Buffy, is the coach, and just sounded out to me. And it was like, it just made sense for me to do it. And they were awesome. Obviously, living in Christchurch was a bit harder, but a bit of travel. And but just to kind of represent, all my mates were there in the ground. And my dad presented my jersey for the first game, and coming in there. And it was just, a pretty special way, because we'd spent so much time. My parents still live up in Counties, and it kind of feels, it's that kind of spiritual home, I guess, of where you grew up and all these feelings, and how much talent and what is in that region. So just trying to give back a little bit, and I hope to just continue that alliance with Counties Manukau, and just keep it going, because it's a special part of the world and New Zealand. And the cool thing that Moana Pacifica is kind of repping it a little bit now, and that's hopefully gonna lead to a bit of change, and just a little bit of real spark for people to look up to in that region.
When an All Blacks legend makes his debut for a province, is it still the traditional, you've got an initiation you've got to go through? How long is it until people feel comfortable to rip the piss out of you to do all those things? Or is it your sort of, like, are there airs and graces, or is that all out the window?
Oh, look, no, it was the initiations are probably fairly gone by now, and we had one after my last game for them in Taranaki, and so I was committed to 5 games, and we lost 4 games when I was playing. We'd lost every game that season, and it was like, shit, I've signed here. I can't not win a game. And so that last game I played in Taranaki, and my dad's family are all from down there, actually, so it's quite cool. So I met up with all them the night before, a day off, and they were at the ground, all my cousins and aunties, uncles and stuff. And then just, to win that game, and then we had a good go at it that night at the Devon Hotel. So there's a little bit of initiation going on there, and it probably took to, the Pacifica, Māori, they're pretty shy, especially looking up to their, elders and things. So it was hard to get too much out of a lot of them over the time I was there. But got a few beers into us, and we had a pretty good night, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Nice. Now you played for counties as an age group representative. Now my recollection, and I was with a few Wesley old boys on the weekend. Now my recollection of counties Manukau rugby in that time was Wesley was the school. And if you know the demographic of Wesley students, a lot of Pacifica, and you from Rosehill College, were you the only, and this isn't meant with any disrespect, but were you the only European face in that counties Manukau representative lineup?
Yeah, it's probably across the years. I played from Goldfield, so they're kind of like standing for up to, up to kind of secondary school stuff. And it probably, as you got a bit older, the less wider faces there were in the side. And so, by the time I was playing secondary schools for counties, it was basically the first 15 of Wesley, plus myself starting in the team, and a handful of other guys from different schools, but on the bench or whatever. But it was, I'd grown up playing with these guys, but I always felt like a bit of an outsider, I guess. Like Rosehill College. There was maybe one other guy, Robbie Dunning, who made a few rep teams with me, but no one else really. And so I basically was making these teams by myself, and so kind of didn't really have a full connection with everyone in the teams I was growing up with. So, but knew these guys, and Wesley, is such a big school and a great school for Pacifica, and especially. And you just gotta get to know these guys, and understand them. And so it's finding time to connect there is important, and understanding how they click, And so there's a couple of guys who are really good mates with from that, and a few guys who went on and made, like Davida Mailau, who went on to play for Tonga, played for Blues for a number of seasons. We made age group sides together. Siali Piatau, I played with there, played captain of Tonga, and I played against him a couple of World Cup and a couple of times, and it was pretty cool, so he was captain Tonga, I was captain the All Blacks, and we get to, go to the coin toss together, and two guys who had played just up the road together. So, it's some pretty cool memories from those times. But, it's a little bit tough, for this white guy to turn up and try and play with them, especially when they start speaking Tongan and Fijian on the field, and calling all the Wesley calls, do all this training with the county schools, and then get on the field and change into Tongan or Fijian. So I just had to try and keep up, but it was a lot of fun.
Niche Wesley content, but anyone who knows the school knows they start each day with the chants after chapel. Did they bring that into the rugby, or?
Oh, they had chants, yeah, different things, yeah. So it was pretty cool, to experience a little bit of that culture, and kind of get a grasp for it. And I think that's it. Yeah, growing up in South Auckland, counties Manukau, it shaped kind of who I was going to be as a leader, and how I kind of interact with different people. There's so many, different groups of people there from different socio-economic plus ethnic diversity. So it's it was awesome.
That's really interesting you say that. I sort of canvassed a bunch of very well-sourced people to ask, Kieran Read as a leader, like what was the strength of his leadership? And to a man, they basically said relationship building, and I guess that platform of meeting, interacting with the multicultural interactions at counties sort of laid the platform for that, right? That must have been the foundation for when the leadership stuff started. Yeah,
I think so. I think it, it definitely shaped how I led as I got older. I was definitely on, like, I captain cricket teams growing up, but I never had confidence in a rugby environment because I was kind of a small fish and suddenly in a big pond, and it just felt like I was just small fry. I'm kind of always listening and learning and picking up stuff in the different teams I was involved in, but I was never one to to voice any opinions or speak up. I had no confidence to do that. But you realise you kind of pick up those, what it takes to have a relationship and understanding different cultures and what it means for these guys. So I think it, definitely shaped how I led as I got a bit older.
Is the other part to that a generational thing? Because again, you've referenced how prominent you were at cricket growing up, and I think you played senior club cricket around 14 or 15. But that when you're that young and some of your teammates are 20s and 30s, that learning that skill at an early age probably served you well in the future as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. So I was playing senior club cricket at 14 or so. Because we didn't have a cricket team at school, so it was that. And then, like there was definitely initiations for there. But it was more just sport. I picked up a lot from that, from playing older guys, and like I played rugby against older guys too. I guess as a young kind of in college and things, but. In cricket, like I played for counties cricket, like Hawke Cup cricket, at 15 or 16, and so you're playing with your Daryl Tuffeys and Ian Butlers, and you're playing against Joey Devcich and the Marshall brothers to Northland and stuff, and you're getting absolutely reamed from, sledging from these guys and different teams you play, and you're not quite equipped to take it, but you kind of really got to build some resilience and build a bit of mental fortitude pretty quick on the cricket field when you're out there batting and there's 10 guys around you chirping you and trying to have a crack at you if you're a young fella. So I think it definitely helped shape a little bit of who I was.
You're kind of the antidote to the stereotype of the big, brash, loudly spoken, cut people down leader. And I know that I want to talk a little bit about what you're getting into with your leadership initiative, but are there things that make a good leader? Is it relationship building on an individual level? Is it the way that you speak at team meetings? Like, are there core parts of being a successful leader that you could share?
Yeah, it's it's very hard, I think, to nail it down to kind of these 4 things or these things that are important. But I kind of always say, if I talk to people about it, it's kind of like you got to know who you are. You got to lead the way you are, and so you got to understand what your values are and how you operate. And then from there, you just shouldn't go too far away from those values. And then it's important, I feel, as a leader to connect. The better your connection with the people who you're leading or your team and things, the more you're going to get from them, and the more they're going to be willing to put in for you and the team. So they're probably the big ones I feel. And then really it's it's backing yourself to the confidence that you're in this position because you are valued and you're given that respect. So always just back your instincts, have the confidence to say what needs to be said when it needs to be said. There's heaps of things you could go into, but it's probably a short answer of it.
Is accountability one? I know the All Blacks had a strong accountability policy. And I'm wondering if it went both ways. Obviously, a player messes up, they're late for training, they're hungover, whatever it is, they get held accountable. Did it ever go where the players made the coaches accountable for some mistake they'd made?
Look, it was, 100%. Like, accountability comes through, it starts at the top and works itself down. I guess, the young person's not going to hold people accountable if they're not seeing it from others, or not seeing that behaviour from the people that they look up to. It is a key part of it. It's a strong part of a culture of a team and getting things to work well. And the All Blacks, I think, definitely have it. Accountability is probably one of the hardest things to have as well as a leader or as anyone really, especially when you're trying to hold your best mates accountable. It's probably the hardest thing to do, to have that hard conversation with your mates, say, hey, you're not pulling your weight here, come on, we need you, which is really hard to do. So it means being able to be a little bit uncomfortable there. You work yourself up a little bit before you do it, but it's an important conversation to have. I think the way I led is that I hope that people would then hold me accountable, because there's a connection and they understand that I'm doing that to them because of the bigger picture, and then they can do it to me as well. And I hold coaches, so Steve, accountable with different things, and it's not necessarily accountable, but it's just more, there's something that needs to be said. I think that's the important thing, is that if what you're saying is going to help the team and it's putting the team first, then it has to be said, and you have to lay it out there for whoever it was.
Just on that point, I was a real avid follower of the All or Nothing documentary, and there's a great scene in that around accountability, which was, I think, Steve Hansen asked how many people had watched footage on, I think your opponent was Argentina in New Plymouth. And there was yourself, Luke Romano, and Aaron Smith, I think, out of the squad were the only three that had reviewed the footage. Two questions or two parts of that. One, obviously, was that an isolated incident, that particular one that gets shown on that documentary? And then two, what's the fallout from that for the other members of the squad that haven't done that task?
Yeah, it was strange. I think it was pretty well done, that documentary, in some ways, but obviously it's not the whole picture. But
that was going to be that's a follow-up question I've got.
and saying that, like, my wife obviously knows a little bit about, obviously, from me, but she said she really enjoyed it, and so she got insight too. So it's I think it was reasonably well done. But yeah, on that, I think that was that's a case of guys maybe just getting lulled into a sense of security that, we've just beaten Australia, we're playing Argentina, I've had a week off, I actually can have a week off without doing any work on, looking at footage and things. Whereas if you're playing South Africa, everyone's hand would have gone up, type of thing. And so just a good reminder, and that's what Steve kind of was one of his greatest strengths, was just to subtly influence and do it that way. And so from there's no one who was going to not watch the footage, and that's all it took. You didn't have to scream down their throat or anything. It's just like, hey, if you want to be prepared properly, this is what you got to do. And I think we realized that it was more about post around that time. It took a whole week. It was like kind of Sunday to Saturday to get right. You couldn't just try and turn things on. It was about to get Sunday right if you wanted to get Saturday right the next week. So yeah.
Was that quite intrusive, having those cameras in there for the doco? Like, do you sort of act up when you see the camera coming near you, or are you kind of used to it at that point? Much of that stuff?
Yeah, it was pretty fine. The coaches certainly acted up, I reckon. You could tell the days that they were mic'd up for training, because they just do a little bit slightly different. And so, you're like, hey, you're on bloody camera today, But it wasn't too much of an issue. I think it was, at the time where it was probably, something that's pretty valuable for the team to do. I don't know whether it had an effect on our performance or not. We obviously weren't as successful during that time, but, we only lost 2 games, I think, in that time, or 1 or something. But it was, for me, it was sweet. I kind of, it's just part of it. It was just another thing. And they didn't, like those little things that they called off meetings, they were there for maybe 2 minutes at the start of a meeting. Steve would give them a one line and then he'd kick them out. So they didn't see any of our actual things or any of our, what we really did, and weren't really involved outside of the trainings and things. So they missed a lot, but obviously still put enough into the doco.
Yeah, that was the part that I was really interested in. Is it's pitched and billed as access all areas, but anyone who's been around a sports team, particularly a high-performing sports team, knows that, media, you can come in for the first 10 minutes and then out you go, and then the real stuff starts. That being said, it was positioned and pitched as a really digestible bit of content. Stephen hates it when I say content, but it was a very good bit of content.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like I can watch the soccer ones or the football kind of episodes, same things, and really get into them. I really enjoy them, and I wasn't sure if they would have got the same effect with the rugby, because I felt like we didn't give them as much. But there's some pretty clever producers and stuff around, aren't they, to try and make it work.
I kind of love that we've got sort of 45 minutes in before we've even started talking about All Black stuff. And I've got two parts to this next question. One is, now that you're former All Black captain and you've been removed from the game, are you freer to comment on some sort of All Blacks things? And obviously you've got the book, but like be a bit more open about the way things were. And the second part of that question is, when you took over the All Blacks captaincy from Richie McCaw, what needed to change in the All Blacks environment to suit your leadership style?
I think as soon as you stop playing, you can definitely, you're a bit free, and you just feel like you can, give opinions. The other thing is, though, is that a lot of my mates are still there, so I'm not going to be, so you really care about them. So, you can obviously give more of yourself once you stop playing. Not that you didn't want to give yourself when you're playing, but it's just a different feeling, when you stop. All that pressure and expectation and stuff's lifted off. So yeah, I definitely feel that since I stopped playing. And then, look, mate, we just won 2 World Cups when Richie stopped. Probably the greatest All Black team ever of 4 years. But the key was that we basically lost our entire leadership team or group. Plenty of experience and stuff. So it wasn't a reset, but it just meant that the priorities were slightly different, I guess, from a lot of the players than what they were previously. And Steve's still there. I'd captained a number of times before this anyway. And so don't think that the All Blacks had to change, or we didn't have to change too much in what we were doing, but it just naturally, I guess, a little bit did, just from who I was. That's just how things worked, I guess, and you just progresses. Steve potentially had to change a little bit as well because of the personnel who came into the side and how kind of people react now in the newer generation. So yeah, there's a little bit of change. But the way we operated, I guess, as a whole, probably didn't change too much.
I want to read another little bit from your book on Richie. You said, we toured with the All Blacks and Crusaders for 9 years, played alongside each other in countless matches, drank endless coffees together, and played a million hands of cards. But outside of the team, our relationship was largely non-existent. I respected that intensely. He wouldn't have been able to do what he did if he didn't have an off switch. It's almost like a character study in, you've got 2 very contrasting captains, successful captains with 2 totally different styles, right? He's, this, by the sounds of it, a guy who's all about business and it's just get the job done and focus on what needs to happen. And you're building relationships and sort of meeting people's families and connecting on that different level. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's fair. I think too, it's shaped by, I guess, who we are and how we were brought up and the situation we're in. Richie is our greatest ever captain and will go down as our greatest ever captain, and that's rightly so. But he was different to me. He's a different person to me. We had a great relationship, but it wasn't until, I guess, I took over captaincy that I can realize, how much strain and how much extra responsibility and pressure and everything that's suddenly on your shoulders. And so, while he was captain, I could never feel that. And so you can never really know what he's going through. And I could fully understand as soon as I kind of became captain, you kind of, as a full-time captain, and you're going to go, shit, man, this is hard. Like, how do you maintain all those relations? Like, you had to work bloody hard because you've got to have this captaincy aura and everything. At the same time, like I was all about the connections. So, and it was hard to do, and probably I worked hard at it. Richie was like, well, I've got the respect, and I do what I do, follow me, and he had guys to, like myself and other guys to, work around how he did things, I guess. And yeah, it's just a leader. There's not one style, to be a leader, and that's the key. As I said before, you got to lead how you are, and make that your strength, and then adapt that to have whatever sees fit for whatever's in front of you, I guess. So yeah, it's and as I said, the other part of that too was that Richie was single basically for the majority of the time as captain, and so could give himself to it. As a single guy, you're not taking. You can go home and think about footy. I went home and had 3 kids, or 2 kids at the time, and 3 kids, and you balance it, and there's different ways to do things. But you can't go away from the fact that, man, when you're in that job, it's all consuming, and it's it was tough. And I was probably lucky I had my kids, so I'd come home and they could distract me for a little bit while you played with them, because otherwise you just keep thinking about it, and okay, how can we get better? How can we help this, blah, blah, blah. So balance helped me immensely. I think it was crucial.
The other thing I'd heard you say was when you were a bit younger, you always wondered why Richie, perhaps didn't go out with the lads quite so much or out in public. And then when you became All Blacks captain, you realised, oh, fuck, man, because everyone wants a piece of you, it's like totally draining and it's a different experience. Was it like that? Like when you were in your prime as All Blacks captain and one of the biggest faces in New Zealand sport, was it exhausting being out? Like, could you go out for dinner or out to a bar?
Yeah, no, you can. You could, and Christchurch is a small enough place that, probably most people see a rugby player or famous rugby player, a lot. So, you could. It's just, it wasn't. No, the interactions when you're out weren't the problem. I think it was just more just going. You just picked and choose. Like if I didn't want to have rugby conversations, I wouldn't go to Mitre 10. And the dads would you up or whatever, like on a Sunday, and you just go, okay, I'm not going to go there today because I know I'm going to get hammered or whatever. So, or, probably feel for my kids a little bit, but, I just, you wouldn't take your kids to the busy playground because that's all you're going to be doing is photos or talking and all this, and your kids are there with you. So, and when you're doing that, it's 100% fine, and I didn't mind it and loved it, but it's just the drain on them a little bit, I guess. And yeah, so it's just finding a balance. Like I didn't go to a mall, It's another place that is just full of people who, and not necessarily wanting to come up to you or wanting a photo all the time, but it's like you walk past and all you hear is Kieran Read, and that's all you hear. I just got really good at pretty much like having this little zone of you don't listen or hear anything, or you can hear it, but you're just zoned out and you're just walking in your own thing. And yeah, it's just different, and it's less now, so it's quite good. But yeah,
I bet you use the old.
It's quite bizarre. It's quite bizarre because you never really expect, or know how to deal with that stuff, growing up.
Yeah, I wonder how many times you've used
the old fake phone call, or the headphones on, not listening to anything.
Yeah, you try and get with it.
Back to Straight 8, you revealed a lot of vulnerability in the book. 3 times, I think you mentioned you cried following the Christchurch earthquakes, the head injury you received in a Springboks test, and when you destroyed your thumb. Now, was it difficult to reveal that side of yourself? Like, sort of, could you imagine generations of All Blacks before you doing that, or was that quite easy to put down in words?
Oh no, it's quite easy. It was quite easy for myself. It's definitely a strength I feel in people, and I think that's what I've documented now, and I think that's the key around men especially, and all the mental health and well-being that's been pumped in. it's easy to say you've got to be vulnerable. It's hard to do, because being vulnerable is, feels nauseating. It feels tough to try and do that. But once you kind of figure out, hey, this is actually better for myself, it's going to help others at the same time, then I think it's really important. And so, when I was writing a book, it was more about, hey, I'm going to give what I can give, and that's the truth and what happened and how it was. So, the vulnerability side of it, I used as a leadership tool, we pushed it in the All Blacks quite strongly, and Steve pushed it to get players to to really be vulnerable, and because we knew it would make them better as players, but as people as well.
Did you notice a change over your time in the All Blacks that became more a part of it than when you started?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it did, and I think, and that's I don't know, it's a generational change, or how it is a little bit. But yeah, it changed. And I think when I first started in the All Blacks, it was probably just coming out of, it was just over 10 years of professional rugby, and people were just figuring out that, hey, we can't, behave how potentially rugby teams have behaved in the past around alcohol and around different things. So that whole thing kind of changed over my time as a professional rugby player, and for the better, 100%. And so guys, now it's really relevant. I know that, especially. It's huge.
I think it's really powerful having someone like yourself with giving that message, having someone, like I said, who's so gentle and thoughtful, being the voice of it, because a lot of people need to hear that. So thank you for sharing that. Go ahead, Jack.
No, I was going to jump in and just jump off the back of that as well. Like, you did a piece with the project with Kanoa that I watched late last night in preparation for this, where you had these conversations, and I read about you going to a psychiatrist and seeking professional help. And as someone who's done that myself as well, exactly what Steve said, like when you see prominent people acknowledging and normalizing those services and reaching out to them. There was another one, I just wrote a note in the lead up to it, Voice of Racism. Like, that was a real confronting thing for me to listen to as well. But to see someone like yourself with your reach posting about it on your social media, it just has a wide-reaching impact through society.
Yeah, I think I got to that place where I realized that, like, you probably, as a young footballer, you're just in the moment, you're just kind of doing what you're doing, and you're not quite fully grasping on the impact you have, but as soon as you pull on a Crusaders jersey or Chiefs or Blues or anything, there's the 7, 8, 9-year-old kids who automatically looking up to you, and so it takes a while to kind of fully grasp that, and it did for myself, like, although I was never disrespectful to anyone, or doing anything that wasn't the case, but you don't realize the impact you have, and then it just becomes a case of, okay, I can have an impact here, as you said, and have a positive impact, and be a little bit vulnerable in that space to do it, and so be it, but to make, it basically comes down to being the right thing to do. So it's why I commit to those things.
Incredibly difficult question to answer, but was there ever a prominent moment or anything where you realized, fuck, when I say something, people really listen to it?
I don't know if there's an exact moment. No, I don't know. I think it probably just kind of, happened over time a little bit. When you see the impact it makes on kids' faces, like just going to promos and just being a part of that. And I learned that pretty early on, and Crusaders are pretty awesome at putting you out there and putting you with experienced players to go out and do this sometimes. So, Chris Jack was a wonderful man for that. When I first went on promos with him, he'd have a smile on his face, he'd talk to everyone, and get down to kids and, shake hands and do everything. And it's kind of like, man, every interaction for that kid is their greatest interaction. For you, it's just a fleeting moment. You're not going to remember it. But for that person, it's one of the biggest things that they've had for a long time. And so, yeah, I kind of tried to throw myself into things that way, with that mindset from then on.
But it goes in cycles, right? Because it's like you romanticizing the rugby park counties 97.
Yeah.
There's those moments, right, that impact you, and you probably think back as well.
Yeah.
That is a moment that kid's going to remember and go on from there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. It just kind of, as you say, you're building these memories for kids. You're building, what they're going to hold on to tightly, for the rest of their lives and things. So, yeah, I had those guys who I looked up to, like counties boys, but Michael Jones came and presented an award at a prize giving when I was younger, and just those type of things. You just, as a kid, it's just like, wow, these guys, looking up to these guys and like, man, this is special. It's cool thing to do.
So we reached out to Sumo to ask for, what, as the guy that knows you best, perhaps what are the most interesting things to talk about? And he highlighted injuries and the will to recover. He said, I don't know how he kept going sometimes, specifically talking about 2015 World Cup final, the high ankle sprain. I think you injured your ligaments in the 3rd minute. And it says that the injury was significant enough to keep him off his feet for the next 4 weeks, but he found a way to play through it. Is that just mental toughness? Is that just mind over matter stuff?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I think it is when it comes to those big moments. And if it wasn't a World Cup final, there's no way I could have played on, because it was I broke a bone in that ankle and badly did it, and I knew it was bad, but it was kind of like one of those ones where you're going, well, hey, strap me up here and let's get on with it, because I the team needs me, kind of, and this is a World Cup final. Let's go. So in that moment, it was sweet. You just get on with it and do it, and that is that mental toughness thing, man. It's just like, okay, this is what needs to be done. I'm going to go out there and do it. There's no qualms. I can't let my team down. I can't let myself down, whatever. And saying that, if I couldn't perform how I needed to, I would have put my hand up. But yeah.
Could you though? Yeah. I always find that statement so interesting. How
no, I did. So if I take you forward to when I did my back, so I slipped a disc in my back, and before I really blew it out, like I was having problems for a number of tests, and we're playing Scotland in 2017. Oh, yeah, 2017, at Murrayfield, and the game I did, and I couldn't run. I basically couldn't run, and I was in all sort. Because I couldn't feel my left leg was gone, because I a disc. The nerves weren't going down, so my left leg wouldn't work. And I got to half time. I said to Steve, mate, I can't run. I can't do this. And it was a close game. And he just said to me, he's like, nah, you're staying on. He said to me, you're staying on. I was like, I'll put my hand up here. I'm like, mate, I can only do what I can do. I can lead the boys, and I'm going to show face, and I'm not going to show that I'm injured or anything, but I'm telling you right here, away from everyone, I'm saying, look, mate, I can't really run. And we got lucky that day. And perhaps they did need me up there, because it got close, it got tight. We had a yellow card. And basically, I bluffed my way through a half a footy just off freaking 100 tests or whatever I had, experience. But then couldn't walk the next day. It's like, there's just moments where okay, I'd said my bit, but I'm out here. I need to do what I need to do, and you just there's something in you. Some guys have that, Richie had it 100%. And I talk about our relationship. We for 8 years we trained together. Rugby park down here, and doing our running sessions and doing our weight sessions. Spent hours and hours. And for me, I spent hours and hours just chasing him up this field, because he was a freak of nature. And so you just see how hard he worked, and it's like, man, and there's no way you could let go when you're in his shadow, kind of thing. So, and that's the mindset that, for me, obviously having him there to push myself as a player for a long part of my career, it just kind of carries on.
Can you give us any more specific examples of Richie's incredible endurance? Like, was it just running? Or was it like, who can do the most push-ups and he keeps going? Was it everything? Or
Yeah.
what?
It's his running fitness was the difference maker. So he could go and go and go. So say you're doing a shuttle run or something, and yep, I can keep up with him and do two of them. Maybe do three. But if I do them at his pace, I'll suddenly blow out absolutely. But he'll keep doing the same pace. So I soon realised that if I'm running, I can't try and chase him for the first few. Say we're doing 5 or 10 of them, whatever. He just had this ability to back it up, and that was his engine. That was his makeup. He's that type of person. That wasn't really me. Felt myself more of a power athlete, I guess, in some ways, but to push yourself for that. Whereas, he didn't like the gym as well, and he was strong, but he wasn't, unbelievably strong.
Did you ever have a sprint? Did you ever have a sprint race with him? Like, did you ever do a 40, 60-yard dash?
I'm all over him. Yeah, I'm all over him there.
Yeah.
and pace. But, the difference was, if you put it onto the field, is that we had a game plan for those years I was there, where our 7 had to do certain things, which was basically run everywhere, because Richie could do it. And when Richie wasn't there, our other 7s couldn't. And and they can't, it's just, he was a freak of nature of being able to do that and have an impact here, get up and keep running, doing this. And there's probably Sam Whitelock's one of the other ones who does that. So if you think about how his role is, like, you don't see him, but he's like a Richie. He'll run, and he'll have an impact. He'll run there. And so his role as well, they just run, those two. And they kind of allowed a team of guys around them to, to do what they do, which is special. So that's Richie in terms of that was his asset, and it showed. No one could do what he did.
Could you have choked him out at Owen Franks' reception?
Of course I could have, yeah. He would have only lasted a couple of whiskeys probably.
Just looping back to the injuries chat, you must have just been in pain or some sort of niggles or knocks through your whole career, basically. Is it nice waking up now? Like, do you feel good when you wake up now? Like, is the back okay? The knees? Like,
yeah. Yeah, I do, actually. I do, 100%. Like, it does, yeah. You always had something, especially the back end of your career. So it feels really good not having any kind of niggles. Like, the backs come good enough, the knees are feeling really good. Go for a run and have no pain, it's a pretty good feeling, 100%.
I want to just touch on some brain stuff. Now, this is really interesting, but it's quite complex. I'm going to read, Steve Braunius did a really good review of the Straight 8 book, and he wrote a passage which I want to read, and I'd love for you to sort of expand on basically what it all means. He says, there's a long, fascinating chapter on how much pain Read's head injury was causing him. Just watching his daughters bounce on the trampoline gave him headaches, and what he went through to combat it, including psychiatric counseling and something called VRT, or vestibular rehabilitation therapy. Quote, the program was based on repeated small exercises like walking down the hallway, placing one foot in front of the other, or moving my head side to side while keeping my eyes on an X taped to the wall, or even flinging myself backward onto the bed. Behold the All Black skipper, a giant of a man, reduced to staring at an X on the wall in an attempt to get his head right. Can you talk about that and where things are at now and how you got through it?
Yeah, it's a scary time, eh? Like, for me, it was, it's probably one of the toughest times of my career. And more leading up to when I figured it out that it wasn't my brain, it wasn't my head, it was my vestibular, which is basically your balance. So when I went and did this test, you're supposed to be able to, stand on, I couldn't even stand on one foot type of thing when I went into these tests. I was so out of whack. So yeah, once I got to that point, it was like, okay, there's a way out of this. And I got the help, and you know, because there was anxiety and different things there around it all. But it is hard. Like, it's hard when you're going through it. It's tough on your partners and stuff. And at that time, like, I tried to really keep it to myself. Like, I didn't share it with any of the team. You know, because we're in the middle of campaigns and stuff. It's kind of like, yeah, you feel like you want to just keep it away from them. So, but you know, when you're driving driving the car, you know, and you stop in a giveaway sign, you turn your head just to check, and by the time you get your 5-minute journey to a thing, you got a massive headache, and you're going, man, this isn't good, you know, like, and it was just because my eyes wouldn't keep up with my head of turning, you know, just from driving the car, 5 minutes. And so, yeah, heaps of little, like, that thing was scary, and, you know, you question a lot in that time. I know probably a lot of guys who have had serious concussions, and yeah, it was very fortunate to have good people around me. Doctors were amazing, and sent me to the right tests, and we did figure out, you know, what it was. It was vestibular based, and then it was quite a bizarre kind of end of Crusaders season. We ended up losing the final, but, you know, for 2 months, I was essentially feeling like crap, feeling like shit, because you do these tests, all these exercises you talked about, and it makes you worse. It makes you fucking headaches. And so you're telling yourself, I've got to do this. It's going to make me better, but you're doing it, it's making you worse. So then, and I was still playing on the weekend. I probably shouldn't, looking back, but I was still playing because I was like, oh, it's not my brain, I can do it. But, you know, I'd be in training, we'd do a maul, and then I'd pop my head out of a maul and kind of not know where I was, type of thing, a little bit, and then run off on things. But yeah, and I'd stop the exercises 2 days before a game, so I could kind of feel reasonably okay before a game. You know, I wasn't, you know, you're still not quite right. And yeah, it was a bizarre time to go through, and tough for everyone. But having, I guess, the integrity, or just, I guess, what it was, but to go and get the help was important. And I think, you know, that really helped me. It set me on a path, and thankfully, it all kind of worked. It kind of got to a point where it basically just, there was one day I woke up and it kind of fixed itself, you know, and I'm not saying, and I was very wary post that, but I was pretty lucky that I didn't have too many major head knocks post that time. But yeah, scary times.
Is it difficult to talk about now, with head injuries being such a sensitive topic in rugby, and players, your friends, your former teammates, all perhaps wondering about what damage has been done to their head? Like, is there any part of you which is reserved in trying to get that message out there?
Yeah, it's a tough one, eh? Like, you see the the studies that are coming out, and you see Carl Heyman and that in the media, and it's hard not to get a little bit worried about those things, knowing that you've been through this. But I look at it that I've done everything I could, and I didn't, play when I was, I took time out when I didn't know what it was, and I never went back after a concussion straight away, and I did all the protocols, and was well looked after. But it is important. The thing is, when you talk about it, it puts you back into that moment, and into that pretty dark space, and because you are touching on that whole anxious and whole kind of, you're living a life that's pretty tough to live, when you're constantly getting headaches and things. So that's the hardest bit, when you get transplanted back to those feelings. But I know I'm happy to talk about it, because and offer an opinion about it, and just make sure that people do the right thing, and which is listening to the experts and taking the time. I kind of feel it's the subsequent concussions that could potentially put you out for a longer period of time and maybe do some damage. So I think they've got it pretty right now, potentially around, the stand down periods, especially at the lower levels.
It's such a complex topic, though, right? Because it's not just sport. It's concussion through anything. It's head injury, brain trauma through anything. we've got friends that have been in a serious car accident and they're still suffering the symptoms now, coming off their bike, still suffering the symptoms now. Like it's a long, challenging road that sometimes friends and colleagues and families don't really understand the challenges and the difficulties, right?
No, they don't. And I think that's the thing is, it can affect you in different ways, as you said, like, it's probably it's the same scary thing about what COVID was, like some people get this long COVID, some people just have no symptoms, like some people cough for a long time or whatever. So without quite knowing what it's going to be, that's where it's murky, and that's what the brain is. We just don't know enough about it. So I think if it's a hard one because the people who are suffering it, I think you're not in the right headspace to kind of know how much you need, the help you need, and the people around maybe don't quite understand it. But just I'd say the people around those people are just to keep reaching out and just don't ask them how their head is. Just ask them, general areas. I think is the best way, because you never constant questions about how you're feeling isn't the way to go.
I like to think our point of difference as a podcast is we can talk about wrestling at Owen Franks' wedding and then take you into retelling the deepest, darkest parts of your career. Unfortunately, I'm going to ask you about another low moment. I guess you kind of expect it to come up. But if you would humour us in talking about the 2019 World Cup, I want to sort of, I don't know, perhaps now reflecting, 3 years later, you might look back on it differently than perhaps straight afterwards. But there was the phenomenal quarterfinal win over Ireland, right? One of the best All Blacks performances as a collective, smashing the tackles on absolute fire. And then there was obviously the England loss a week later. So when you reflect on that now, thinking of that week, was mentally, were you in the right space? Was it physical fatigue? I know yourself, you were suffering from injuries. Like, how do you reflect on that week now?
Yeah, look, reflecting back, there's no regrets around anything there. Rugby and probably in most sports, it's the day. And so on that occasion, England were well and truly better than us on the day. And the one thing you look back on and go, okay, they were really, really good, and we were probably really bad, which is disappointing that we didn't play to our potential. But in saying that, maybe we weren't allowed to. So there's a few things you look back on in the week. Yep, might change a few things. But I think we gave it our all, like the toughest thing is to back up. Those performances. And I hope the guys who went through that in 2019 will take those lessons into next year in 23 and use them, because that was one thing we didn't have in 19 was any guys who had lost a World Cup before. And I know the motivation for a lot of the guys who we played with in 11 and 15, was based off a lot of hurt and a lot of tough scars and things, from 07 and even 03. So, it's a hard one because you don't want to lose to have to win one, but potentially, it's a mental thing when it gets to that level, and especially at those stages. And unfortunately, England were stronger than us on that day.
When you're the All Blacks captain at a World Cup and you realise you're getting beaten and you're going to lose, I can't even imagine like the mental toll that's taking on you. But are you able to reflect on where your mind was when you realized you were going to lose? Like, are you thinking about the disappointment for yourself and then your teammates and then your coaches and then your public and what it will have to your family and your future? Like, does it kind of all snowball and you're trying to deal with that while going through the motions in the last few minutes?
No, I don't think so. Like, I think it was genuinely, it wasn't, we're maybe 2 tries down. So it wasn't until, literally the last couple of minutes or whenever they had the ball. I can't remember what happened at the end, but whenever there was kind of no chance is when you're going, yep, that's us, because up till then you still believe, and as the leader you're projecting out and you're getting the guys to do it all we can. And unfortunately we couldn't change too much, but it was certainly once yeah, there's the last minute, and it's when the whistle blows. I don't think you're. It's kind of a hard feeling to explain, but I don't think you're thinking about all other people. I think you're just thinking about your team. Like you're thinking about effort you put in, and you're a little bit numb because it's not exactly what you turned up for. And so yeah, it was freaking hard. I put in, you personally put in all this effort, and the team has, and you don't come away with what you want. It no shine away from how tough that was. And then probably the hardest thing was then fronting the team and saying to them, hey, look, boys, it's us, but as a leader, kind of, you go, okay, I've got to do this. Fronting up and saying we've got to keep our heads up, kind of thing, and which was a hard thing to do in that moment when, as you said, you just want to cry and kind of bury your head in the sand a little bit. But you can't do that on those stages. We've learned how to win so much, and you got to show all that respect and everything when you don't win as well.
Yeah, for all of the meticulous planning that goes into a campaign, the on-field, the off-field, the mental skills training as well, I imagine you mentally prepare for the possibility that it won't eventuate the way that you want it to. But do you ever really, when you're going through those scenarios or practicing, is that ever a real thought, or are you so focused that you're going to achieve it that you're like, no, fuck it, I don't need to worry about this because it'll never happen. We're going to win.
No, you don't prepare to lose. No way. It doesn't come into your vocabulary or anything. So, we're there to win. We're there to win. There's no thinking about, of course the feeling goes in your mind at certain points. Shit, pre-World Cup, what if we don't win? Or, during games, before a South Africa game or before, that game, Iron game, man, what if we lose here? Like that, that thought pops into your head, and that's natural and that's all good. As long as it doesn't ruminate and start, chopping off everything else that's in there, then sweet as, it's just a thought, get rid of it, all good, So he definitely had the thoughts, but it never came into my mind that we're going to lose. So you're not prepared for that moment. You haven't prepared yourself for it. So that makes it emotional and everything as well. So, because as you said, you're not prepared for it, but you just adapt and try and do it best you can.
And then someone chucks a camera in your face and says, Kieran, can you give us your thoughts on the game? Are you just a blur then? Is it just autopilot and words are coming out, or are you consciously thinking of how you're going to come across?
Mate, I don't know. I haven't seen the interview. Can't remember what I said. But I think at the moment it's a bit of a blur, but I'm sure I would have been conscious of what I was saying, because I knew what it meant to lose as an All Black, and what the world's going to be looking at us, and maybe if there's any team that if they don't lose well or they show a bit of bitchiness or whatever, then everyone's going to come down on us. So there's no way I could behave potentially the emotions that you may be feeling. So you got to behave with honor and respect and stuff. So yeah, I definitely would have known to compose myself and make sure I did that.
I'm going to deviate slightly from that moment and go right back to the start of the tournament, to one of my tournament highlights, which was the first Haka against South Africa. And I want to kind of understand, if you can articulate it, what it feels like to be at the front of the neho, and also to walk through your teammates for that challenge when that challenge is laid down. Can you even articulate what that feeling's like?
No, it's hard to. I was passionate about the Haka, and so be able to kind of co-kaya it with TJ and do that it was special and a massive honor, and huge for myself to do, and you pay respect to that. And the head of the niho is, it's in some ways it's frightening, because you've actually got Haka is all about who's next to you and around you, whereas it's kind of you're by yourself a little bit at the front. And so when it gets loud, you can't hear TJ, calling, so you don't know when to come in, you don't know what to do, so you're a little bit paranoid in some ways because of that. And especially when you're pumped up and everything, so you're straining with your ears to try and hear what's going on, to try and get the feel, and you hear the boys behind you. But it's pretty intense. It's pretty cool knowing that you've got all this force behind you, and you're kind of that where it's all expelling out through you. So it's cool.
Did I read something that you blacked out during the Haka against Ireland? Have I got that right? That there was a moment where you kind of lost consciousness or something?
Oh, yeah, I think that it happened. I don't know if I lost consciousness, but I'd certainly must have given out. I was too pumped up and gave out like the call too loud, and I basically just when you're giving out whatever it was, a karite or whatever, like real loud and guttural, and not enough air in the lungs, and I was like, oh geez, I just need to. So I just took a bit of time to kind of to carry on, but it was and I just had to kind of settle myself down. I was probably a bit too overexcited on that occasion. Yeah.
I work at the Herald, and so I spend a lot of time on Getty and Photosport. There's some such great photos of you at the front of the Haka with the lads behind you. You've got to tell me, have you got one of those at the house? Like, is that a photo that's on the wall and somewhere in your house?
No, I don't know. No, but yeah, they are pretty cool, aren't they? So I probably should invest in one, to be honest.
There's a great little doco. I think it was in the lead up to Aaron Smith's 100 game. A little mini documentary where you guys go through some of the moments of his career. Like, we talk about vulnerability, and authenticity. That's a great watch. It's a great 15 minutes. But I and this is why I asked the question, is because I found myself compelled listening to the way Aaron was talking about the Haka and what it meant to him, and being the captain for the first time. And it's something that only a select few people have had the honor of doing. So I feel like it's an interesting area to scratch around in, because we all get pumped up by it, but very few get to do it on a field with 80,000 people. Yeah,
it is, and it's it's very special. I think too, like that at the All Blacks, we're paying full respect to it now. Like we obviously got our own Haka, Kapo Pongo, and then Kamate, and we utilise Derek Ladeli, who's he's very strong. Māori, created a couple of pongo for us, and we understand what it means to do Haka, and it's become, I guess, a fabric of us. And so you just want to, when you're performing it in front of people and everyone's watching, you just want to show the respect to Māori and do it well, and it's there's nothing better than doing it overseas when there's a crowd getting into you, and it's kind of your way of getting back to them, I guess.
I don't know if you can let the trade secrets out, but when do you make the decision on whether you'll do kamate or kapa or ponga?
It's just generally the day before. Yeah, so we'd do a practice run, at captain's run, go through it. But it was captain's decision, really. Alongside, you'd talk to TJ or Aaron or someone like that, not too much science behind it. Probably the bigger test, you did a couple of ponga, but it depends, and who was on the field as well. Because a few young guys and maybe start with kamate,
Because as a fan, there's almost that sense of anticipation as you line up as to which one are they going to go with. And it is like when Kapo Ponga comes out, it's like, fuck, they're doing it. And it just gives that little extra.
It's pretty cool Haka to do. Yeah, 100%. It's awesome. But I think kamate too now that the All Blacks have kind of got it, down pat. It's pretty humming at the moment, and done really well. It's powerful Haka too. But yeah, a couple of Ponga was probably my favourite Haka to do. Yeah, it's cool.
Kieran, we won't keep you too much longer because I know the kids will be up soon, but I would love to just touch on your post-rugby career. I understand you're looking to be, or maybe you are already, a business consultant specializing in helping create better teams focusing on leadership, mentoring, and consulting. Have I got that right? And what are some examples of what that might actually look like?
Yeah, it's probably something like that, isn't it? Look, I don't know exactly what it looks like for myself, but yeah, I've just got a bit of a passion for leadership and for helping people, you know. It's and I've learnt all these things over my time as a rugby player, off so many people, and performing under pressure and all these things. And it's like, man, I want to try and help people in this space. So, yep, it's delivering, you know, talks to businesses. It's looking into some mentoring stuff for, you know, for that business people or whatever. And yeah, just trying to do my bit there. So it's it's quite exciting. And also probably the other thing which is quite cool is kind of doing like a little bit of a captain's club. So basically teaching some skills for young captains, you know, like at high school or colleges, and just giving them some tools, leaders in school. And this is not rugby, this is sport, this is any leaders at any level really. And it's going, okay, basically we get hung out to dry a little bit when you get named captain. There's not too many tools and things that help you, so just try and which is quite cool. So I'm hoping to launch that quite soon, and really kind of help that next generation of leader. So it's a mix, man. I'd probably the cool thing is I can do this and do that, and a little bit of everything there.
Fuck, that captain's club is such a good idea, and you are the greatest person to front it, because you're right. You become a captain or a leader of a school team or whatever, and people tell you you've got the leadership qualities, but you don't necessarily know what they are. You don't know what to do. So, man, that would be so invaluable.
You're talking about me personally when I was captain of the first 11 with you. I feel like you're having a go at me there.
Well, so that's it, man. So, you can go to kieranread.co.nz. I'll get the plug in now. So there we go. Always got a call to action. So, and have a look on the website. Yeah.
I thought you might be giving out the Hotmail address to get people to sign up, but it must be there's a kieranread.co.nz, is it?
It's special. kieranread.co.nz. Yep. Hotmail's just for special friends, mate. So.
Speaking of special friends, the Matt Heath banter on Radio Hodaki with him texting "I love you" and bits and pieces, is that kind of genuine? I don't want to burst the bubble if it's not, but can we say that's a real thing that actually happens?
It's not too far from the truth, to be honest. It's pretty close. Yeah, we get on quite well. It's good, man. Good mates.
Because it does seem genuine that not that there's any reason not to be, but just your appearances on those sorts of shows and with the ACC guys. I guess we ACC guys as well. Yeah. Like it does feel like it's a genuine connection, and you do enjoy their company.
Oh, mate, it is. You know, I started as a fan of those guys. You know, like probably the only player in the All Blacks who kind of listens to a bit of their stuff and things, and that type of music. But so and then created some good relationships with them now. You know, and obviously I've done a stint on the ACC one time doing some cricket, and get on quite well. So it's a lot of fun, man. It's fun to listen to.
Yeah, Mike Lane said that I think you rang him one time and said, "Yeah, Mike, it's eye sockets Read here. Just wondering if we could do this, and this." And he was blown away that you've actually adopted that nickname.
No, we have we've got the nicknames, and a few of the nicknames they use. Some of the boys weren't happy about them. Trying to get them in there. There's a few that stuck, which is quite good.
Hey, we'll let you go. Just one last bit, Shay, a question about South Africa.
Yeah, how many times do you think you've travelled to? One, how many times have you travelled to South Africa? And did you get into like a routine where you would just pop the headphones in, do a podcast for this amount of time, always sit in the same seat? Like, how's that travel fatigue go?
Oh, look, I reckon it's around 30. I did add it up. I reckon I've spent a year of my life in South Africa, which is quite crazy. It's around 30 times, and then some, like a lot of them are 2 weeks. You know, some of them 1 week. It must be just under 30 trips. You know, so it's a lot. It's a lot of time in South Africa over a 10-year period. 10, 12-year period. It's an epic place to go to, an epic place to tour. Really enjoy it. And the first time you go, you'd get whacked around. This first few years, man, the jet lag would smash you. but I think you just get used to it. So by the time the last few years, I wouldn't touch a sleeping pill. I'd just, you just raw dog it and kind of, just natural. And I just felt like you got a lot better benefits out of doing it that way. So
is it always business class?
Yeah, it's business class. It's pretty cool. It's Sydney. So you fly to Sydney just on the normal plane, and then business Sydney to Joburg. Yeah. So
you reckon you could ever do it?
It can be a 14-hour flight, so it's a big haul, but it's you just want to get off the plane and go get some calamari or a big steak and some cream spinach. So it's it's a nice place to tour.
Could you ever do that trip eco?
No, I haven't done that trip. Could I, or have I?
Could you? It's harder.
It's harder, man. After you spent years in business, it's going to be so hard to go to economy. Like, I remember we played in France for Colts, I think, and we did economy to go to France, and man, that was a tough 24 hours. You're as big as what you are now, 20 or whatever. But when you got the upgrade to business, man, it was pretty amazing. So if you're dragging 3 kids around, mate, 5 in the family, you're probably not spending business. So yeah,
just get your own jet.
See how this business goes.
Hey, we'll let you go, Kieran. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time. Everyone I talked to had the same thing to say about you. Good bugger, such a good bugger. And it's been reflected in this 90-minute chat, man. So thoughtful, so kind, awesome, so insightful. Shay, you love doing a good outro.
Just the authenticity, like Stephen said. Everyone that I've spoken to as well said the same thing. And what you see is what you get. Yes, there's a few more cuss words in this episode than you probably did during some of your All Black interviews, but it's the same thing. You feel like you're a mate. If we did we've got your Hotmail, so we could flick your message and you reply back, and it would be all good. So thank you very much for your time. Long may it continue, and all the best with kieranread.co.nz.
That's the one. Yeah, thanks, guys. No, I really appreciate it. Look forward to a beer one day in person. It'll be good.
That'd be nice.
Awesome.
Cheers, Kieran.